Hey everyone. So I'm ready for the last talk of the day. Thank you for being here. PWAs started several years ago as a way to add in a website to your home screens. And from there, it has evolved into these big set of features and opportunities that developers have to build full web applications that can work across devices, that can work in many different platforms. So in this talk, we're gonna revisit a little bit about the thinking that we were doing when PWAs started. We're gonna check a little bit about their status right now, especially on the area of installability. So my name is Adriana Jara. I'm a developer relations engineer for Chrome. And if you walk with me, we'll take a trip to reimagining installability as we know it, especially on Chrome. It is a set of experiments that we'll be running in the next couple of months. So keep yourselves in the loop via Chromium developers on Twitter, and the Chrome developers YouTube channel, and of course in developers.chrome.com for when all these changes become official. But in the meantime, I'll let you know what is coming. And bear with me, because to understand why these changes are happening, we have to go through a little bit of history. And basically, in the beginning of PWAs, well, I actually wasn't there in the beginning of PWAs, but this is how I like to imagine. And we have this group of people that have worked on web standards and that have worked with different browser vendors, and they are starting to notice this movement in the ecosystem of things like, well, people are starting to spend a lot of time in apps, and we were having like this whole movement to mobile first and all that movement in the ecosystem. And then they were also noticing things like developers already using the web to create their apps, and they were using the web actually a lot because it was both in deployed apps that would run all on the web and people would access them via the web browser, but they would also use it to build their platform specific applications via web views or other technologies. So these people started thinking, how can we make the developer's journey easier so that with the code that they are actually writing for the web, they can serve their users. And we thought, let's make web apps installable directly to devices. And PWAs, as you may know, started focused on mobile. But the thing is, as good intentions as we had when we made PWAs and the focus on installability, we were also walking like a fine line because we did want users to access those web apps and give them a good user experience, but we were trying to avoid spam. And we were trying to make sure that as users got onboarded into the web apps world, they would be protected and their interactions would be secure. With the passing of the years, we have realized that we did not. Give me 1 second. Okay. Turns out that all the thoughts that we had about protecting our users and keeping that balance between onboarding our users and giving them a secure environment, we did not have all the answers back then. turns out that, as you know, when we made web apps installable, there was still a set of capabilities that was not ready for developers to implement a full web applications that users could use anywhere. That has been changing through the years, and now we have a lot of advances in that area, thanks to things like Project Fugu and the work of a lot of our other browser vendors. Turns out that also users actually use web apps not only on mobile, and we launched PWAs also on desktop so that users could have like these multi-platform, multi-device experiences. But there has also been the thing of shifting the user's mental model to realizing that the websites are installable and that they can provide them an experience as full and frictionless as a platform app. We have a little bit of trouble making that mental model change. And as we were thinking all these pieces coming together, we might not have given developers also the best guidance to help us and help the ecosystem in general onboard users into this installable web mindset. I'll go back a little bit on my slides because part of the guardrails that we set so that this transition from websites that are ephemeral to web apps that users keep on their devices was the installability criteria. And like you can go check out in that website, it has all the components of the installability criteria. And it was meant to encompass how we thought back then that we would provide users with the right kind of web apps, that we would make sure that the web apps would have a certain quality to make the life better for users. Back then, our early idea of PWAs was like we wanted a manifest because that would give developers the opportunity to implement a recognizable brand. And that is still the case. The manifest is still used for that. It still gives you your icons and your names, and that's how users identify your app on their devices. We also implemented Service Worker, and one of the main ideas surrounding Service Worker was that developers can implement an offline experience, because we thought that that's what users wanted, like to know that this appy feeling was happening, because if they had no connection, the web app was still going to tell them like, hey, I'm an app, you're offline, come back later. And we also included some user engagement heuristics to trigger the install prompt, but it was handled completely by the browser. And as I explained before, it turns out even with all the guardrails for the installability criteria, things did not go exactly as planned. So we are shifting the thinking, especially in Chrome, how we are seeing installability these days. For one, we want Chrome to get out of your way, get out of developers' way, so that you can have that closer connection that you have with your users. And by doing this, we want to empower you to really give a custom experience to your users, to put it in your hands, to give your users that happy feeling that we were just talking about and that we have talked about through the day. Because instead of the browser making some guesses about what makes a good PWA and what is not a good PWA, actually users are a lot better at making that decision. And developers can receive feedback from their users. Developers will have statistics and analytics about how many users install their apps and how they can improve their own users' experiences. So one of the things that are coming to Chrome and that we're going to be experimenting with is default offline experience for PWAs. So basically, instead of you needing to implement a service worker, cache your offline page only to say to the user, you are offline, come back when you have a connection, the browser is going to take care of that for you. We'll have some basic page. I don't have a preview right now, but keep listening to our news and you will see the experiments running soon. Basically, you don't have to implement that offline experience anymore. The browser will take care of giving your users, you're offline, come back to your wonderful app when you have a connection, if it is required for all the interactions. And this means that since we no longer require a default offline experience from your app, the service worker is going to be removed from the installability criteria. So you no longer need to implement a service worker just to get installability. Now, this is only because of that default offline experience that we're making easier. Because does this mean that service workers are deprecated? No, not at all. In fact, I need to repeat that. Does this mean the service workers are being deprecated? No, not at all. And why? Because service workers, their objective is not only that offline experience, it was one of its objectives, but they are way more powerful and have way more functionality. So they are not going anywhere. For example, if you want to give your users better experience, a faster experience, if you care about performance, it is very likely that you're going to use a service worker. For example, do you want to cache assets at install time? And this is one of the experiences that users expect from apps. When they install the app, when they hit that install button, they expect everything to download and they will have the app UI the next time they launch the app. And it is with a service worker that you can do that. When the service worker installs, then you cache the assets that you need for that app shell UI, and you still need a service worker for that. Do you want notifications? You still need a service worker for that. Notifications are super powerful. They need to be implemented with best practices. But if you still want notifications to re-engage your users, you will need a service worker. Do you want your own offline experience? Again, it's not about users getting that default page and saying like, oh, you cannot use my app at this moment, but it's about developers thinking through which use cases they can still serve to the users. For example, we just saw how YouTube has their own offline experience that you can pre-download videos, and then when you are on an airplane or you have a slow connection, you can actually look at those videos. If you want to implement that experience for your users, something like that applies to your case, maybe writing a post or saving a note or anything that you want to still give your users an opportunity to do offline, you are going to still need a service worker. So remember, service workers are still around. It's just the installability criteria that is changing. And of course, because also as it was mentioned in some other talks, service workers are still a tricky thing, but you want to use them to give your users a better experience. We still have the tools that you need. For example, Workbox that will give you caching strategies, pre-caching, and a lot of the features that you still want service workers for. Okay, why remove the requirement right now? Because we were thinking that it helped give users a better experience. But as I mentioned, we actually want developers to take advantage of the relationship that they already have with their users. By the time the user lands on your web page, it is no longer a relationship with the browser directly, but it's a relationship with your app. So by removing the requirement, we are giving developers the opportunity to show their users how to get onboarded on their apps. Developers know better their use cases, so they know when to launch that prompt that it's going to make it more likely for users to install their app. For example, if you have an e-commerce site, you know that maybe after the user completes an order, that's the moment to prompt for installation, to tell them to track their orders. Maybe you have a notes app, and maybe after they create their first note, that is the moment to prompt the install experience. So by removing that requirement, we are handling the power to you, so that you help us and help the ecosystem show users that they can use your web app and keep it on their devices as any other app. There will, of course, still be help from the browsers. We are still very much committed to all the features that enable the web app experiences. Chrome is gonna still be improving our APIs, giving you new features, and giving you tools and best practices, because we are on the business of making the web better for everyone. So we are going to still let you know what we think is best for users and what users seems to be enjoying the most. As I said, also the web app experience features, a lot of them are based on web standards. And as you may know, the web community, it's very stable. Once something makes to the standard, it is there for good. It is supposed to be maintained and have backwards compatibility so that users don't have this fragmented experience. So PWAs are still the way to implement web apps that are backed by web standards and that have compatibility between several browsers. And of course, all of the features that the platform, that the browsers provide, like security, accessibility, all the UI standards for building polished UIs with CSS are still going to be there for you to create your PWAs. So let's review more or less what has happened. First, we had this basic idea of PWAs. You needed a manifest, a service worker, and the browser would measure user engagement to help you launch a prompt. Then we moved a little bit on time, and it was not only making a website installable, but it was also having this rich set of features with Project Fugu that you could have really powerful PWAs, or they could be really simple PWAs, but they were performant and they basically gave your users the task they were looking for. There was also support added for desktop. So now PWAs were truly multi-platform. And from then, like, we know that there are PWAs on smartwatches, there are PWAs on VR experiences. So it is growing and growing more where PWAs can run. And we now, as developers, can take the advantage of having this experience that is multi-platform, multi-device with one single code base. And with the new installability criteria changes, well, you still need to take care of the manifest. You still want the users to have that branding for your app. So we still want that. You no longer have to take care of the installability for you don't longer have to have a service worker for the installability criteria. You might need it for other features, but not for making your app installable. User engagement, it's moving a little bit more towards you. Chrome is still experimenting on when we're going to show the default prompt, but the idea is that developers will show their users, our app is installable and you can use it in your devices. And of course, it is on you to provide the experience that your users are expecting. Having syncs so that they can use it across devices, start an experience on your phone, continue it on desktop, or vice versa, or being able to share with your friends across devices, no matter what device those are. Users are still looking for that experiences, and those are the experiences that the browsers want to support now. So, since we are removing that check for checking if you have a service worker and things like that, I want to leave you with some tips for creating a good installability experience that your users are going to follow you through and are going to keep your app on your device. Keep your manifest up to date. As I mentioned, there are tools to create the different icons, check your name, and check actually the manifest features, because we are launching more of this branding and more of this visual cues to help the user feel that they are using an app that belongs in the platform, like a Windows control overlay and all these preferring dark mode or light mode. All these things are coming to the manifest, and you can implement them today. And it is really important because with that installability criteria removed, more users are going to be able to install your app, and you want to make sure that they have that good experience of being added to the home screen and acting as an app. At the richer install UI, we are improving the prompt. This is the traditional default prompt that we all know and love, but with just 2 fields in the manifest, you can have this better experience that actually tells the user you are installing an app, and you can add a description and some screenshots of how your app looks. And this is just an example. You have the basic fields in the manifest, and then you can add that screenshots array, and of course a description to guide your users through the installation and why they should keep your app. And the good news here is that this richer dialogue, this richer prompt is coming to desktop in Chrome 107 or 108. Keep an eye out for that. And it's just a parameter that you change for the screenshots, and then you have installation for multiple devices. The last tip that I have on installability is implement your own install flows. You might be familiar with the before install prompt that allows you to create your own install buttons, and it also allows you to guide the user and prompt them at the best moment in your usage flow. For example, this one has like a little pop-up that tells the user, like, if you click on this button, then you get to keep my app and use it whenever you want. This is an example of an implementation of the before install prompt. It is in web.dev/learn/PWA in the installation prompt chapter. We basically capture that event and we save it for later and use it when we create our install button. Does this mean that PWAs are no longer a thing? No. On the contrary, it was before that we thought that this whole installation and all these requirements was what made you create a PWA, but PWAs are actually way more than installability. PWAs are web apps, and we call PWAs the umbrella of technologies that make it possible to create web app experiences. Before, we couldn't create anything that looked like an app on the web. Nowadays, we have all the capabilities, including the installability, and we can have this multi-platform, multi-device with huge reach, frictionless experiences. And that umbrella of technologies is what we call PWAs. go beyond installability. All the capabilities that we have from Project Fugu and other vendors, that is part of PWA. What are the experiences that users expect from an app? They expect to be able to access a file directly from the file system. We have the file system API for that. They expect a polished UI, and that is consistent. You can create it with CSS and responsive design. They expect to be able to install an app on their devices. You can create that with your own custom flows and with the richer install UI. The browser provides you with accessibility. The browser provides you with security. All those features that make your life easier for creating an app, that's what we call PWAs. If basically the goal of PWAs is if your users want it in an app, you can build it on the web. You have the ideas, and we have the tools and the documentation. We are waiting for your feedback. We are interacting with you and making the implementations better and better. You can find the documentation for progressive web apps at web.dev/PWA. And if you are new to the space and want to learn everything about PWAs, we have a lot of advice and best practices at web.dev/learn/PWA. Thank you so much. You can find me and send me feedback or ask questions at Tropicality in Twitter and on Discord. I will be hanging out on Discord later today and probably the next couple of days if you have any questions about the talk. And with that, we are reaching the end of the PWA Summit. Thank you so much for the people that have been here for the different blogs, for the people that are watching it later. It has been a pleasure. Please keep the conversation going. These events are important so that the vendors get in touch with developers that are creating real life apps out there and that we can help make your experience better. You can watch the previous blogs and rewatch them and share them with friends in our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/c/PWA Summit. You will find us, me, and the rest of the organizers in our Discord server. The link is on the screen. And you can always tweet at us at PWA Summit. In the name of all the other organizers, once again, thank you so much. These events are for you and only possible because you are here. We wait for your feedback and hopefully we'll see you very soon. Thank you. Bye.